Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of TV and Us, a conversation show about the TV series we just can't stop talking about. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And each season, we focus on a different show, reviewing it episode by episode, and we invite you to watch along with us. Right now, we are reviewing Succession Season 4, and we've come a long way. Today, we are on the second to last episode of this entire series, episode 9 of season 4, titled Church and State. If you haven't watched it yet, this is your spoiler alert. Please check it out before continuing to listen. Okay, Sarah, do you want to kick us off with a brief summary for episode 9?
Sure. As the family girds themselves for an emotional funeral, Kendall finds himself at odds with Rava and inopportune news from Jess. Shiv tries to reposition herself in a new political landscape, and Kendall rallies supporters to his side.
I was punched in the gut by girds.
I was not ready for that word. I very clearly did not read this summary before I read it aloud, so I was not ready for girds.
But, like, you can't just whisper girds, and you really packed a punch with it, and I thought that was very fitting for the word, so good job. You did the word justice. This is very good.
Thank you.
It's very important.
Yep, I was trying my best.
Okay, so, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. Let's start off, though, in TVNS tradition, with our choice for episode title for this episode. What was yours?
Mine is Sad, Sad, Sad. It was so good.
I love it. Oh, that's so good. That's very, very good. My episode title of choice is Woof.
Yes. Well done.
Yes. Yeah.
It works.
It does. Yeah. There's a lot of barking. A lot. Okay, wow. We are on the second to last episode. Here we are.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe that we're here? We got here so quickly.
We really did. I could consume and just gorge on so much more content from this show and from these writers. I'm sad it's ending, excited to rewatch it, but also, my gosh, so much happens for so many of our characters. We have long been talking about over the course of the show and all of our looking forward sections about this funeral, and it has come. So it is a party, a fireworks show. He went out with a bang. So let's dive in. Let's really dive into all of the different dimensions that have happened in this episode. I guess let's actually, before we dive into the details, overall thoughts on the episode at a 10,000 foot view. And we'll go character by character after that.
It's phenomenal, as always. Like, I don't know, I feel like Succession keeps like one-upping itself, and it's just getting better and better. And so I'm even more excited for this finale. But I think it was so wise. Oh my gosh, we've talked about this in almost every episode, but the way that this season is paced is just brilliant. And the fact that they saved the funeral for the second to last episode, because it really felt to me like the ending has begun. Like, that's what it felt like. And I was, as I was watching, I was not only watching what was happening, but I kept thinking, oh my gosh, this is the second to the last episode. Like, it felt so final, which obviously, like, it's a funeral. Logan is dead. So that finality was really important, and I think it was so strategic to have that as the second to last episode. If that had happened earlier in the show, that it wouldn't have felt as organic and natural, I think, as this to be the beginning of the end of this show. And so again, I'm just amazed at how they were able to game out this entire season and choose for certain events to happen in the order that they have happened in, to help us as the audience experience this last season along with these characters.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think one of the things that I didn't expect to feel during this episode is how much I, along with all of these family members and these people, are also being ushered into whatever this new chapter and this new era is for them. I think that I thought that I processed that way back several episodes ago. Like,
You
okay,
thought
it's a
you
new world.
pre-grieved?
I like Roman went on this journey with him where I was like, oh my gosh, he's in there and life will never be the same again. Yes. Um, I felt like, okay, yes, we're in this new world. Logan is no longer here. There's all these new interactions, these new dynamics, but this almost deepens the reality setting in for all of these characters, not just the family and the children, but I think for a lot of the other peripheral characters as well. Like, we're really entering into a new life for these people, a new chapter for them. And it's fascinating to me because I think a lot of other shows would have saved this funeral episode for the last episode, for the finale episode, and kind of leave it open ended, a little bit on a cliffhanger, these suggestions of what life might look like for all of these people at the end of the ceremony, right? And it's kind of left just vague for you to fill in the gap. So I think it's actually fascinating that they chose this for the second to last because now they have an hour or an hour and a half, maybe more. I hope more. I was thrilled to see that this was an hour and 20 minutes when I clicked play. I was like, okay, yes, yes, I'll take an extra 20 minutes here. Yes, please. Um, but there's so much time to do a lot now. And it kind of poses this interesting question of what are they going to do? Where are they going to be in the finale episode? I think we've seen these places and moments and milestones that have been teased for a long time. The election, the tailgate party beforehand, the funeral. Now it's like, where are all these people going to be? And yet again, it feels like a white canvas that they're going to paint on. And somehow they've perpetually been painting, and there's perpetually a white canvas for more to be told. The canvas just keeps getting bigger. So uh, this is really interestingly set up for so many directions for this finale episode. I expect it again. I always do, to find out more. And I always am leaving the episode wanting more and feeling like, wow, this could still go so many directions.
And I think one of the things that's so brilliant about this show, again, we've talked about this so many times, is that the characters change positions so much in every episode. And so like for the last two episodes, Shiv has been in a rough spot. Like she is having a hard time. And in this, she seemed to just skyrocket to the top again. We've seen Roman on his own roller coaster and Kendall on his own roller coaster in this show or in this one episode. And I think that's part of what makes it exciting because it doesn't matter where a character is positioned going into an episode because literally anything can happen. Nothing is guaranteed. And even if you're in a strong position at the start of an episode, you are unlikely to finish in that same position. And I think that's where we're at coming into this finale. We're kind of gearing up for this like Kendall versus Shiv battle and like everybody going to their respective sides. But who knows what's actually going to happen in this final episode? Anything could happen.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the fact that it's teed up that way, I think is a misdirection. I hope it is because I think that to reduce it down to just it being a showdown between the two elder siblings, I guess yeah, they're both middle siblings. Is Roman the middle child? Anyway,
Isn't Roman the youngest?
that's what I thought. He's the baby. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, I think that there's so many players here that they've been encircling around all of these characters that I hope it's a big beautiful fireworks show and it's not
Mm-hmm.
just a like binary power dynamic.
Yeah. And I mean, every episode has been
Yeah.
so complex
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to have complexity in this final episode. Like you
Mm-hmm.
you can't not have that when this whole show has been exploring these really complex power dynamics and how, these different power moves and all of this. So we can expect, I'm sure, a lot of that in the finale.
Yeah. Okay. Let's dive in to some of our core characters. Who do we want to start with? Who do you feel passionately about talking about first?
Well, should we talk about your guy? Because he goes
Yes.
on quite a journey. Roman goes through some stuff in this.
He does. His the cracks have finally been fully shattered to pieces,
Yes.
which I
Yeah.
think we were all expecting. I think it's so fitting that it's at his father's funeral in this big moment where he has a lot of pressure too to keep up appearances and deliver that eulogy. I think that being the moment where it sets in for him, I think is really fitting because the gravity of it really hasn't had time to sink in for him, and for him to just totally blow it in that moment, but I mean be incredibly human in a lot of ways was um really like oddly comforting to see. I think I expected it. I mean, at the by the ending it feels very tragic to see him just in this really self-destructive headspace, but the moment where he has that catharsis, like he can finally let all of those emotions come brimming and exploding through the surface, I thought was oddly comforting to watch as a viewer because we'd felt it just brewing over the course of so many episodes. The other thing that I was thinking about when the episode ended is in a lot of ways he's incredibly sympathetic of a character by the end, but I think it's paired really interestingly with him just being such a little shit for most of the beginning, and
Yeah.
and that being kind of these signs of his anxiety and his pressure that he's been experiencing and all of the overwhelming of emotions that he hasn't been able to process. Like this is his way to open the valve a little bit and let off some steam, and that's his weird twisted way to do it. But I think that the pairing, like he's so unlikable at the beginning, and I think he's so broken and deeply human by the end, and it's just this like really interesting we go from like the full spectrum of color in how we feel about Roman, and I thought they they handled it very well, very wisely with the way that human beings process difficult things.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. And just the truthfulness of it, like when you're trying to suppress an emotion, you might not even be consciously trying to. Those emotions will bubble up often at the most inopportune time. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we see with Roman. And I love the way this season is structured because for so many episodes, he's been saying, I'm fine, I pre grieved, no big deal, I got this. Like he has this bravado about it. And we as the audience are looking and we're going, no, you're not okay. Even other characters are starting to go, hey, Roman, like, you're not okay. And he will not listen. And this is the moment when we see that facade absolutely crumble. And it's just beautifully written, wonderfully acted. Like Kieran
Oh,
Culkin
so good.
does a phenomenal job uh, just going on that roller coaster ride. And man, Roman he's in a bad place by the
Yeah.
end of this.
He
So
really is. I think one thing that Kieran Culkin does so well with playing those scenes is bringing out that childlikeness when he sobs and when he attempts to give the eulogy. You see how much he's just a young boy trying to survive in a world of adults and trying to live up to these expectations and standards of who his father was. But really, like he is just a young boy that's been through so much and has all of these weird twisted coping mechanisms, and he's broken in a lot of ways, but I thought that the way that he just shriveled into himself and the way that Kieran Culkin acts in those scenes is just such a ingenious delivery to bring out the childlikeness of Roman in that moment.
Yeah, it, it's it was masterful, his performance.
Mhm.
I was in awe. Like we've seen, I mean, all of these actors are great in this, but sometimes you see these little like moments of genius from one of them in an episode, and I feel like we saw that in Roman in this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, he's not doing so hot. So
He's
we'll
not.
see what
No.
happens next.
Hey man, anything can happen. We can still
Yeah.
get an itty bitty rise of Roman from the ashes.
You know, that final scene of him just like absolutely no full abandon, just self destructiveness. I was like,
Hmm.
this show in the finale could go real dark if it wants to. And that being its claim and its statement around like the brokenness of this family that has passed down generational trauma from one generation to the next. And like ultimately, like when it all crumbles, like when they're pressed and they're under pressure and they've tried everything to prove themselves and they can't, like what will be left at the end of the day, you know? Like, or I do wonder if they take a different direction, which is we see Roman pick up the pieces and begin to heal even a little bit, you know what I mean? And there's this hopefulness in the end. I'm just fascinated to see what this show chooses to say about what it believes about who these people are, you know?
Mm-hmm. I That's a really good point. I that's where we're headed. Is
Mm
okay, what is the summation of your thesis?
hmm. Mm hmm. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be very telling.
So let's pivot to another character that I think will also be very fascinating if we see the continue rise or we see his star falling and crashing, which is Kendall, because we do see him rise to the occasion. Tell me your thoughts about Kendall's arc over the course of this episode.
Gosh, it's just fascinating because you see, like, it opens with him and Rava and that confrontation. And I am always going to be Team Rava because she is a normal human who is just looking out for her children, trying to save them from this crazy family. And I'm like, yes, girl, protect your kids. And so we see this really awful confrontation. And you can
Yeah,
tell that
bad.
Kendall is just dealing with a lot and taking it out on others. And then that's followed up by him and this moment with Jess, who has been so faithful, the MVP of like every episode. And he manipulates her, gaslights her, blames her. Like he is awful to her in a different way than he was awful to Rava. And so then you see him come into this funeral and then you see him turn it on. And he when Roman crumbles, again we have this foil between these two brothers. When Roman crumbles,
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
Kendall steps up and he
Hmm.
performs. And then you see him consolidating power for the rest of the episode. And I thought that that was just so fascinating that you see these different glimpses into Kendall and him. I still think he's trying to figure out his place, and like all the kids are trying to figure out how they operate without their father, cuz their dad was the planet and they were all the moons in his orbit. And now that that is gone and there's a void there, what are they orbiting around? How do they act? What is their path? Like they're trying to figure it all out. And I feel like in this episode, and we've seen it throughout the season, but we really see Kendall trying on these different things, like these different ways that he could be like his dad. And I just thought that that was really, really interesting to see these glimpses of Logan in Kendall, even at times like there have been multiple times throughout the show where he's like I'm not going to be like my dad, like I'm not going to do these things, and then you see him following in Logan's footsteps in very clear ways. It's just fascinating to watch him become what he has loved and hated. That's who he's becoming. It's just so interesting.
Hmm. Yes. yes. And I think towards the end of the episode, you also see a lot of the dirtier tactics that he's willing to use. He's willing to blackmail these people so that they can work for him and bark. You know, woof woof goes Hugo.
Yeah.
Um, but he's willing to like stoop that low. And very, very in line with Logan's tactics to just strong arm people and coerce them into um, operating for you and working for you. But I think what's fascinating is the way that those two scenes at the beginning of the episode with Rava and with Jess, I think reveals so much of the fragility of Kendall's judgment and his ego when it's challenged or when he doesn't get what he wants. He kind of lashes out, and I think it's that fog that he has over his glasses when he is feeling undermined or feeling out of control that is his flaw. Like there's so much ego to the point where he almost can't really see clearly. But that same ego and that ambition gives him the audacity and the boldness to uh, take these big swings and make these big moves the way that Roman lacks that. He's unable to go out and make bold moves, right? He's so afraid to. Kendall's willing to because he got the ego. But it's almost as if that ego, the same thing that can fuel his ability to step up to the plate and perform well under pressure, is the very thing that is also going to cloud his judgment, which we've seen a million times before in the rest of the seasons, where he swings, he overplays his hand a little bit and swings a little too much, and he kind of crashes and burns. So there's a fragility in his rise that I think is pretty fascinating to see.
And that's such a human thing. Like, a lot of times, our greatest weaknesses are just our strengths when they're overextended. And we
Mm.
see that with Kendall just constantly. He overextends his strengths and then it becomes a weakness. And we see that throughout this episode for sure. And I'm very excited to see how that's going to happen in the finale. Like, what are they going to do with him? Because he has been poised this whole show as his father's successor. And he is trying to get everybody on his side that he can in order to assume that throne. And the question is, will he overplay his hand or is he going to figure out how to do it?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that this angle that the show's been highlighting, emphasizing over the past couple of episodes around the trade-offs that he feels torn between, but ultimately he's choosing business over his children and protecting his children. And the fact that Rava and the kids are kind of a little bit in the orbit here makes me think that there's some angle that they're going to go with him needing to make some difficult choices in the final
Mm-hmm.
uh, episode that I think will be revealing about ultimately who is Kendall and is there hope for him, or is he just like drunk with power right now, and is he going to continue on that path forward?
Yeah, I love that we had a I feel like we had a few episodes where Rava was not in the picture, and I love that
Mm-hmm.
over the last few she's been brought in with the kids because I had forgotten about Rava and the kids, honestly, because I just got so wrapped up in the siblings in this little world. So I love that we were able to get lost in this world like Kendall, and now we're being reminded that he has other responsibilities too that he had been neglecting. And we get to see how that creates more tension in him. And like you said, it shows more about his character. What does he do in these difficult situations when his two interests are opposed from each other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he's another really fascinating one where I'm just like, how will they end his story arc? Because there's been so much tension and push and pull, rise and fall for this character, honestly, over the course of all 4 seasons. I would say that the volatility of Kendall's rises and falls have been so much more frequent than
Mm-hmm.
someone's like Roman, for example, he's a lot more volatile in this last 2 seasons. But Kendall, from the beginning, we see that raw ambition, and he gets hit and knocked down, and then he rises again and wants to go against his father. So there's been so much push and pull with this character, and ultimately, what will they do? What will they do and conclude for him?
Yeah, I just don't see him choosing his kids. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know he had that little bit with Jess about wanting to get full custody. He wouldn't get full custody, but I mean, maybe he could buy full custody. I don't know. But I don't think that he would though. Like, I don't know, that just doesn't feel right to me for this character to choose family when he has
Yeah,
chosen business for the last 4
every
seasons.
time. Yep. Yep.
But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see what the writers have in store for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Something about these last few episodes, I'm like, I think there's a pretty, it's interesting. It's an incredibly cynical view about the way that human beings are at our worst. But there is this empathy that the show also has, which I want to talk about with Iwan's speech, who comes back and talks a lot about Logan and his childhood and whatnot. There's this little moment in there where I was like, wow, that seems so key to what these writers believe about humanity and the way they see these people. So we'll come back to that one. Let's talk about Shiv. Yeah, girl.
Shiv the Shiv, ready to fight. Yes, I'm here for it. She's great. Yes, Shiv, you do your thing, girl. Um, there's so many interesting moments all throughout this with Shiv, and you see her. I love seeing her political mind just working in all relationships. Like, it doesn't matter who she's talking to. Her guard is up, and she is that, like, political targeted assassin. And we get to see that in this. She is always working the room. She's ready, and she is going to get what she wants. Um, yeah, it's also fascinating to just see her. I think with her siblings was really interesting in this because in the last episode, huge betrayal revealed that she's working with Matson directly against Kendall. Um, and you still see this tenderness from Shiv toward her brothers, even though they were the worst to her. And she knows that she can't trust them. But like when Roman breaks down, there is this tenderness and this softness from her. And you just see these little glimpses through her hard exterior that there is a human in there. But then you also see her knowing when it's time for her to have to perform. And she does. Like when she gives that speech, there's the right amount of tenderness, but she also says what she needs to say. Uh, it was just great to watch her show so many different facets and sides to her, uh, in a different way than we see in the two other siblings.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that was fun to see about the sibling dynamics is there's this reveal and this confession about this huge betrayal from the last episode, and we see her ready to just like light everything on fire, and both her and Kendall are kind of playing the long game here, like they're gonna go for the jugular, but they are waiting for the right moment to strike, and you kind of feel that tension a little bit in there, and you see their next moves, and they're kind of stalking through the forest as they encircle their prey, but none has made an explosive move yet. And they also really haven't confronted each other much about it. They'll talk to everybody else about their angle and whatnot, but they're playing the long game. And I think in earlier episodes that would have been a far more explosive moment between them. And they're a lot more stealthy and a lot more tactical now, which I think is pretty fascinating to see. I think my theory is that I think Shiv's getting played by Matson. Um,
Oh yeah, a thousand
I
percent. Yes.
So I think that that is going to be her downfall in the next episode, that she's going to get totally screwed over. I think, again, that line from, I think, Rhea from a previous episode around Shiv thinks she's smarter than she is. We're seeing that continue to play out right now. And man, it's just tough to watch her work so hard and work all these angles, knowing her believing that she is outsmarting everyone and has a great plan, but I think everyone else around her kind of knows. And so that's tough to watch, man.
But she's doing it.
She's trying.
She is
She's trying.
determined.
We see a little reconciliation with her and Tom.
Yeah.
A little moment, a
Yeah.
little moment. I
Yeah.
wonder where they'll go there next. There's a softening there that I think will be, I think it's setting up for something in episode 10. So
Yeah. I
there's
I
more
mean
of the Shiv and Tom story.
it has to be,
Mhm.
like that has been such a central plot line throughout this whole show. So there has to be some sort of something. Doesn't have to be like, happy family, but there needs to be some sort of resolution to that relationship.
And we see so little of Tom in this episode, which is interesting. I think he's going to play a big role in the next one.
And he was big in the last episode too. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, the dude is tired. He's so sleepy. He's been sleepy for like 3 episodes.
He just needs to go home and take a
He
nap.
needs to take a nap. Come on, buddy.
All right. We see some of our Logan's ladies come back.
Yes, Logan's ladies. LL.
Oh,
Ready.
man. They all sit in a little row
Oh
together.
my gosh.
Oh,
Okay.
my
So, can we
goodness.
talk about that moment
Wow.
when Caroline walks over and grabs Carrie? I audibly gasped when
Mhm.
she was like, "Hey, come sit with us." I was like, "Oh my gosh."
And let me introduce you to my Carrie.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. That was so crazy. And then the four of them just sitting together. Marsha pats Carrie's hand. Like,
oh gosh. Yeah.
what? That
Yeah.
was a bonkers moment in this show.
You know what's really fascinating is that paired with Shiv's comment in her speech around being a woman and
Yes.
all of that. I'm like, man, there's such an angle here and a thesis that I think the show also has around the way that these incredibly sharp women have to figure out and honestly work harder than the men to figure out how to survive in this world. I think we see that with Jerry is sharp as hell as well. But I would love to, on the rewatch of the show, just kind of observe the gender politics that are interwoven into so much of the show as well. Because while as cringy as that moment was of all four of them sitting together, there's something about that it was a little heartwarming for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like there's a kind of an awareness of we all were in the orbit of this incredibly powerful, difficult man, and we somehow are here, survived it all. There is a little bit of that camaraderie there that I thought was fascinating. I don't know if you might have read that differently, but it was like these four women have figured out how to survive in Logan's world, and that is an accomplishment in and of itself.
And I think it's also interesting that we see Kendall's interactions with the women in his orbit, Rava and
Oh,
Jess.
yes.
And then we go to that scene with the women that were in Logan's orbit who are standing together and they hated each other, but have made it through. And so I also think that that's a really interesting parallel that we have going on there. I don't really know what to make of it, but I feel like the show was very intentional to highlight the women in this episode more than
Yes.
normal, because usually
Mhm.
it's Shiv and the boys is often what
Mhm.
it is. Sometimes with Jerry or Carolina, but sometimes Jess, but it's usually Shiv and the boys. And in this one, there's a lot of time spent with these other very strong women, though you don't often see them use their strength in an overt way like the boys do. you see how they subtly sometimes, except for Caroline, navigate their way through this ecosystem. And I don't know, it just felt like such an important thing in this episode for these women to be a main focus, which was nice to
Mhm.
see.
Yeah, and I think that that little gesture from Marsha just says so much about, I think, what the show's wanting to say about the way that these incredibly sharp women are figuring out how to survive in this world. And it's such a contrast to the last time we saw Marsha, and just
Yes.
the level of disdain and just amount of disrespect that she showed Carrie. And it's almost like if you take out the man in this equation, there is a solidarity, there is a respect that can now flow a little bit more freely. Like I think about so many of the movies about like romantic comedies or whatnot, and it's so much of these like women fighting over men and tearing each other apart because of it. But man, the show's kind of like if you take the man out of the picture, here are these powerful women that have figured out how to get what they need, work their angles, and there's this sense of camaraderie that can begin to flow. It's not like a gushing waterfall by any means, but that little gesture from Marsha, I think, was really heartwarming, really beautiful to see.
I love your positivity in that, because I I was thinking about, obviously her reaction in these two episodes are so different. And part of me wonders, because Caroline was the one who brought Carrie over, if there was this like mutual respect between like Caroline and Marcia, that Marcia kind of had to like come under that and like accept, like, oh no, she's staying, she's here. Whereas when they were at the house, it's Marcia's house and she could do whatever she wants and nobody can say no. So like I almost viewed it as like a power dynamic between these women of
Mm,
Marcia couldn't, create a scene there. Number one, it's the wrong place because it's the funeral. Number two, because even though she was married to Logan, there's a different power dynamic between her and Caroline, maybe. I don't know. I would have to like go back and watch episodes where both of those characters interact, because I don't remember what their dynamic was in previous seasons, but I thought that there was something maybe there, and that's why Marcia did it instead of some like camaraderie.
interesting.
I viewed it very
Interesting.
cynically.
Well, I think it's that paired with the fact that there is this there's definitely a power dynamic there, but there's this like weird jovialness between Caroline and her Carrie. You know what I mean? Like
That's true. Yeah.
all of that as well, and like, oh, okay, let's all sit together. It it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't know if there's like still um estates to uh dole out to, and if Marsha's just on her best behavior right now. I like that could be self-serving as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting.
Interesting. Yes.
Okay, do you want to talk
Okay.
about Ewan?
Yo, you were hoping that he would come
Yes.
and wreak havoc, and
Yeah,
homeboy came
buddy.
and did. He spoke his truth.
He sure did. Oh my gosh, I loved every second of that. And it lasts for a long time. And I was hooked. I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is exactly what I've been wanting. Ugh, 10 out of 10. No notes. It was perfect.
I was just cracking up at his audacity to just wave off everyone else.
Heck yeah, man.
Greg showing up,
Yeah,
Shiv
no.
trying to stop him. He's like,
Mm-mm.
what kind of people block a brother from speaking at his brother's funeral?
Oh, it's
Like
so
just
good.
a searing indictment of the entire family, the entire room. It was great. He came and spoke his truth. I thought that the pairing of his speech with Kendall's speech was really fascinating, which we should talk about Kendall's as well. But that little moment, and he doesn't spend too much time on it. bless his heart, bless his soul. He tells that very brief story about the guilt that Logan likely carried that was confirmed or validated by their parents around potentially being responsible for his sister's death. Like, I just thought that helps contextualize so much of the show's thesis about these people are terrible, but ultimately, like, a lot, they are a product of the environments that they were raised in. And there's this empathy that we have for Logan amidst everything, all of the awful things that he's done, which, Ewan details them out and goes ham on them, but it's all of those indictments are seen through the lens of what he starts with. And I just thought the ordering of that, the timing of all of that, was so intentional. And then I think it's fascinating to see the way that Kendall then, honestly doesn't disagree with most of what Ewan has said, but he recontextualizes it in terms of the impact and the effects that it has on the country and America and capitalism and livelihoods and entertainment. Like, he's basically like, yes, all these things are true, but the production and the impact is what he celebrates, and he doesn't comment too much on who Logan was as a person. It's more about the things that he's produced, which I thought was just such a American capitalistic way to look at the value of a human being. But those two things together, I thought, just was such an interesting perspective that the show has on what it means to be a human and where your value comes from and how are you judged as whether you're a good person or not as a human being. Is There's all these different angles that we see it through.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, to your point about Kendall's speech, we see Logan say something similar at the beginning of this season, where he talks about like humans are just, what did he say? Like,
Economic units.
yes, economic
Mm-hmm.
units. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
was. And so you see that coming out of Kendall's speech as well. But what I really loved about Ewan's disruption, other than everything, was that he he framed the entire funeral. You know, Roman was ready to go in and dad is great. Like that was his thing. He was a great human being. And Ewan just comes in and delivers this scathing indictment mixed with some empathy. And so then both, I feel like Kendall and Shiv's speeches acknowledge that Logan was not great in like the like moral sense of the word. Um, but there are these good things about him. So I feel like Ewan colored everything. And so even though Shiv was trying to like, okay, we gotta say the other side, she still had to acknowledge his flaws. And I love that all three speeches are a mix of good and bad with Logan and just shows the complexity of this insanely monolithic character. And we don't get the overly simplified, overly rosy version that Roman was initially trying to give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is such a badass move because how you can't follow that speech with this beautiful celebration and rainbows and butterflies of Roman's speech, right? Like, Kendall's speech is almost in response to, and a lot of the things that he says too are kind of in response to the things that Ewan has said. He's like, yes, he might have been like this, but so many of his sentences were phrased around that. So the way that the writers use the language from Kendall as well was really smart, because there is the pressure to figure out how to respond or reframe some of these true statements into a different light and spin it into a different angle. And I think that's one of those moments where you're like, Kendall's got the stuff, like he
Yeah,
rose to the occasion and he
yeah,
was able to spin that and reframe it in a way that doesn't feel like it's gone and deviated so far from what Ewan has said that it's unbelievable. It's just far enough that you're kind of like, yeah, that actually does make sense, and everything he's saying is true. And he's it was so strategic for him to focus on the larger impact of Logan that is undisputed, and to to then reframe it in terms of the livelihoods that were created, the jobs that were created, all of this stuff. It's almost like he chooses to play it from a different angle, and it's honestly just as valid of an angle. So very
Mhm.
skillful from Kendall.
Yeah. And that's what I love about this show is that they all have strengths and weaknesses. And
Mm-hmm.
we have seen throughout this season that Kendall isn't just some son of a rich dude. He's not just a son of a media mogul, but he has some very real skills that we're seeing him pull out when his back is against the wall. And he does it very well. And that was just another one of those moments of like, wow, that is an art, and not everybody can do that.
Yeah, he's got some pretty valuable skill sets that are needed for whoever fills these shoes. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's such a misdirect from some of what I was expecting to see in him. He was so volatile and so fragile in the first half of the episode that you kind of expect him to falter a little bit, but Homeboy knocks it out of the park.
Mm-hmm. When he needs to perform, he can perform. Like
Yep,
he knows how to put on the show.
yep, yep. So good. Okay, anything else that we wanted to talk about?
Um, Apparently, this was shot as like one continuous shot and then edited,
Oh,
like the funeral scene.
wow.
They just did that whole thing in one fluid moment with like multiple cameras, and I just what a crazy and incredible way to shoot this episode is running through that whole funeral scene just in a single take. I mean, I don't know how many times they did it, but to give the actors the ability to really feel what the characters are feeling and go with the flow of this funeral rather than chopping it up into bits. Like,
Mm.
wow, what
Mm-hmm.
what an interesting and challenging way to film this. But
And I think
it
like
works.
the authenticity of the performances that then can shine through. Like
Yeah.
imagine having to do the Roman breakdown scene like 5, 6, 7 takes of
Hmm.
the breakdown. It numbs the reactions and whatnot. And I think the show does such a good job of showing these quick shots of just characters' faces reacting to things that are happening. uh, Genius, just so good.
Hmm. Yes. Well done.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's do our TVNS awards for the second to last time for the show. All right, best insult.
My pick for best insult is the O that Caroline gives to Shiv when she sees her. She sees her and she goes, "Oh."
Oh, yes,
That was
that
my
was very
favorite.
good.
There were a lot of good insults in this episode, but that was my fave.
Well, I have one back for you, which is
Great.
Shiv commenting about her mother,
Yes.
Caroline. Here she comes. Thought I heard the sound of Dalmatians howling.
Yes. I wrote that one down too.
So good, so good.
I would
Uh,
also like to just say one of my favorite lines in this was from Matson to Shiv early on. And he says, when he's talking about the US as a democracy, he says, "You are nearly as mature a democracy as
yes,
Botswana." And I
yes,
went,
that's really,
oh,
yes, so
we
good.
are speaking some harsh truths about this country right now, and you're not wrong.
Another line that I jotted down was from Jerry. Jerry's got some good zingers, but
Yes.
Frank's talking about how it hitting him all of a sudden that he's really gone, Logan's really gone.
Mhm.
And Jerry goes, "How much of you is glad?" Oh, just the no fluff, straight
It's
to the
so
point. I
good.
love that about her.
Yes. It was great to see Jerry, though, because we
Yeah,
didn't get to see her in the last episode.
I know.
And here she is palling around with Frank
Mm-hmm.
and Carl again. So,
Her little butts. The
this
three of them,
little
I just love
crew.
seeing the three of them together, honestly.
Yes. They're fun. And
Mhm.
I mean, I hope that they make an appearance in this next episode.
I do too. Yeah. Okay, who won the episode in your eyes?
Ewan!
Ah, yes.
I mean, honestly, he changed the dynamic of that entire funeral.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yep.
think he won for
Yep.
best funeral speech and stealing the episode.
Said his truth, then Mike dropped out of there.
He sure
Goodbye.
did.
See all of you never.
Right? Although, presumably, because is he still on the board?
Oh, he might
Presumably,
be.
he'll be in the next episode too, I would
If
imagine.
they do some kind of vote or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but still, Mike dropped and got out of
Goodbye.
there.
Yep. My choice is Mencken.
Nice. Yep.
I love me a character that can successfully be working both sides to keep their options open. You know, he's like, hey, these two dudes, maybe not. Maybe I'll go with these other folks. We'll get the best
Yeah.
deal and work our way out of this. You know.
Absolutely. Got to keep your options open.
Yes. Yes. He's just also such a menacing presence anywhere
Yes.
he stalks through. So props to that actor for selling this like biting dangerousness about him that is so off-putting, so unsettling. Very good.
And there's so many big personalities in this and so many electric actors on screen.
God,
And
so good,
somehow
yeah.
he is able to not only hold his own, but he steals some of those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he's not like the focus of the scene, you just see him and you go,
His face.
there's
Yeah, in the
something going on
background.
there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, best power move.
Caroline bringing Carrie to sit at the front.
Oh, it's so cringy.
Yeah, man.
I was so uncomfortable for all of them.
Yes.
All four of them
But it's
just
this,
hanging out.
yeah, it's this moment of like, no, this is what we're doing. Marsha,
Yeah.
I don't care how you're feeling. This is what we're doing. Like,
Well, she does it with the like Caroline charisma of like,
oh, yeah.
oh, let me introduce you to. Have you met this? Here's my Carrie. Oh, like
Ugh,
they're not
it's
dancing
so
around
good.
any of their relationship. She is putting it
Mhm.
out there on the table, slapping it on there for everyone to see.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. My choice is Ewan's cannonball into the eulogy pool. Dove right in.
Cannonball he did.
Yes. Okay. For the last time, looking
Oh my
ahead
gosh. Huh?
for the last episode, what do you want to see? What do you think will happen? What are you hoping for?
I still would like to see them burn it all down. Now that we're gearing up for what presumably is a Kendall versus Shiv throwdown, I really want the company to get destroyed in the process. I think that would be great. I'm also very curious because in this episode, and then there was a previous episode as well, there's this focus on Colin, Logan's bodyguard, and we've seen him show up a few times in this
Yeah.
season, and we see him
Yeah.
again in this episode, and
Very
I
odd.
wonder what they're gonna do with him because
That's a great observation. Yeah.
it feels too prominent to me for him to not show up in the last episode. I mean, maybe they won't do that, but I'm very curious if Colin has a card to play or a bomb that he's going to drop.
Well, is Colin the one that was there with the situation with Kendall and the waiter?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't remember the details, but I know that Logan had someone that was kind of carrying out some orders for him and was kind of looming in the background. So there might that might be there. That Kendall scandal's gonna come. It's gonna come. It's gonna be tragic and awful for Kendall because he's gonna be on his rise. But that could be where they're working because there is a close up shot of Colin's face after Kendall basically like strong arms him into working for him, where he's kind of like, yeah, buddy.
Yeah,
That's an
Colin
interesting observation, yeah.
was in that episode. I
Okay.
So I just scrolled through the IMDb and I found him listed in the cast of that episode. I don't know
Mhm.
if he was the one who was cleaning up, but presumably if he's Logan's like trusted guy,
Yep. Yep.
that would make sense.
I actually think that would be a far more hopeful ending than Shiv using it. You know, that's how they're gonna write themselves out of Shiv
Yes.
stooping that low to literally indict her brother that and just, you know, knife him that badly. So that's smart of the show, you know.
Mhm.
This is their out. This is how they're gonna have that be revealed, but not from another family member.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be that would be
Good
nice.
observation. Yeah. Uh I hate to say it, but I am looking forward to seeing Shiv get screwed over by Matson. I think she's been on her high horse
Mhm.
for so long
Yeah.
and needs to get knocked down a couple pegs. She's a little too confident right now. I think that there's going to be this like Matson Mencken alliance that's going to form. I mean, if this is playing out so far a little too close to home with reality,
Yeah.
I think that there's an angle there that they're going to play with.
Yeah, yeah, they have left a lot of options open. You know, because it
Mm-hmm.
could be like Kendall versus Shiv and they destroy each other and
Each
then
other.
Matson takes everything. I would be totally happy with that because I the kids can't end up with it.
No,
Like
I don't think so. Yeah, they're
I
gonna end
I
up with nothing.
yeah, I just don't think that that would work for one of them to be Logan's successor. So I think either the whole thing has to be destroyed or Matson needs to take over or somebody else comes out of the woodwork to take over, but it can't be the kids.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. I do wonder if they're going to leave a little bit of little drop of honey in our mouths at the end of this, um, by having some moment of a, a little glimmer of some reconciliation or like a rebuilding. I just think that like the fact that season three's finale ends with this this confession from Kendall and this bond that's formed between these kids, that in that scene where Kendall's got his head in his hands and they're in Italy and there's this tenderness that like rises to the surface in both Shiv and Roman, and it's beautiful to see. And we go full sweetness on that one where they just band together and they're a team now. And I wonder if they'll build at least take a little tiny sliver of that, um, because I think that we continue to see that they fight with each other, they backstab and betray each other, but there is this connection that they have, this looking out for each other that they're willing to have with each other, that I think would be that little tiny tail end of hopefulness potentially for the show that's likely going to crash and burn most of this and have a pretty cynical view, but perhaps there's a little bit of goodness at the end.
That is interesting to think about though, because we started this season in that first episode. The three kids, they were working to build something together. And that was what all three of them wanted. And then this opportunity with Pierce came up and then Logan died and now here we are. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just interesting that there was that unity and the three were collaborating and they were, you know, sharing this and playing to each other's strengths and all of that. And now we are entering into the final episode and everyone is in the complete opposite position. They are all at each other's throats. There's not trust between them, even though Kendall and Roman are co CEOs. You can see that Kendall is trying to take over and Roman is self destructing. And so that's just a really, again, like in every episode, all of the characters kind of change positions. And we've seen that all throughout this season. Uh, for them to get to this point where they're nowhere near where they were at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because we start out with them not learning to build bonds with each other, but really their collaboration is primarily centered around the deal and the business.
Mhm.
And I think the most hopeful ending that this could happen, show could end with, is they have nothing, but they have each other. The business is in
Mhm.
absolute chaos, or it's no longer theirs, but they realize that they all have nothing but each other ultimately at the end of the day. And not in a like rosy way, but there's just this realization like we've all hit rock bottom destroying each other. So we kind of, well, all we got is each other at this point, you know? That's the most hopeful ending.
Mhm.
Or they just all are at rock bottom in isolation, which would be the most tragic ending, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really do think it comes down to, like you said earlier, like what is the show's thesis? What do these writers and creators believe about humanity? And that will determine, I think, how this ends. So that's going to be
Mhm.
really fascinating to see what percentage of hopeful they
Is
include
this, yeah, are
in
these
this,
writers?
yeah, in this really probably cynical and tragic ending. Is there going to be just a twinge of hopefulness in there somewhere?
Yeah. And how will they how will they reveal that balance of these many different perspectives and hopes or not about the future? I think Ewan's speech is such an interesting little glimmer of what the show can do with holding these two truths together, these many truths together, but at least in Ewan's speech, these two truths together about where he came from, but ultimately how he took that and fueled this like incredibly toxic empire. But if you boil it back down to who this human being is and what he's endured, you have a little bit more grace and a little bit more sympathy for him. So clearly this the writers of the show have that nuanced perspective, and I'm just so intrigued about all of the different flavors that they're going to mix into this ending. Oh man, it's gonna be so good. So good. I'm excited to talk about it with you afterwards.
Oh my gosh, me too. I'm ready, but I'm not ready.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. All right, well, we're gonna be ready either way.
Mhm. Yep. Ready for
Any
this board meeting presumably.
Yeah, yeah. Any other last thoughts about episode 9 before we wrap?
I mean, just this funeral did not disappoint,
Yeah, yeah.
which is impressive because we've been building up to it for however many episodes since he died. Uh, and wow, it did not it exceeded expectations, which is
Hmm.
impressive.
They also
And
had just these hilarious moments in there as well. Like
yes.
the ability for the show to make something so tragic and also so hilarious at the same time. You're laughing and you're also like, wow, this is a lot. This is really heavy. But also, I'm cracking up right now.
Mhm. Yep.
Edge of my seat, man.
Ooh, and we're going to get more of that
I know.
next week.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, this was our review of episode 9. You can find it available to stream on HBO Max. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of TV and Us. Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. Everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you hung out with us today as we continued our journey through Succession Season 4. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a review letting us know your thoughts about episode 9. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at tvnspod, or email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. We will be back next week to discuss the finale of this show, episode 10. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll definitely be talking again soon.